All right. Oh, I'm still going. All right. So, it turns out that my mouse chose this moment to lose all of its power, and so I'm going to need to charge my mouse. Happy holidays, everyone! I hope you're doing well. While I sort this out, and just take a second. I have the right lead and everything. Oh. But of course, the timing is fantastic. Look, it presents me with a wonderful opportunity to practice patience. All right, so music is down, mic is up, camera's working. Hey, look, I got a new camera. Hopefully, two things will happen now as a result of this camera. One is you can actually see me without like a sort of fuzzy low level, hold on, I have to fix my bangs, a fuzzy low level haze over me all the time, slightly out of focus. I've worked very, I didn't really work that hard. I went out and I bought a new webcam because I've always hated all of the webcams that I've owned because none of them had the precision, never had the clarity. Let me just move that mic. That I really wanted. So I treated myself to a holiday webcam, and now you all get to enjoy it. I guess what you really get out of it is you'll be able to see my wrinkles more clearly. So enjoy that. But the other thing is that hopefully now too, so clarity, and then that was it. All right, I'm sorry. The whole like mouse threw me, just completely threw me off my game. So I'm going to try to compose, bring it back. And yes, we're going to take a break from our book club this week because I needed to have a rant about Elon Musk and his very, very twisted, egoistisch, auf Deutsch, view of the world. Like just his real lack of any emotional intelligence or appreciation for human suffering. And I was wanting the flickering to go away, but the flickering doesn't seem to have gone away, and I don't know how to fix that, and that annoys me. That annoys me a lot, because it doesn't happen. Else my bangs are annoying me. I just want them to lay nice, just lay nice. I guess what the best thing to do is to get going so that when I flicker, I am minimalized. I am minimized. Today is just going to be a rough day, is what I've decided. So I think now that we've got the holiday spirit out of the way, we can go ahead and drop this down now so that it's a little bit of a serious topic to be using to talk about wearing some pajamas. So I'm going to be a bit more serious. Although I will fix my hair as a consequence of taking my little hoodie off. All right, let's go ahead and transition over here. So we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, and you're going to listen. Elon Musk's he's divorced from reality. He's really divorced from reality and really divorced from human suffering and just the obstacles that people face. He lives in a little rich man's bubble where he's protected by his whiteness. He's accepted into far-right groups because he meets the racially discriminatory criteria. So he's willing to basically say that other people besides him have to just endure abuse. The kinds of targeting that he's not a member of a group that is systemically targeted for hate by other people who look like him. And therefore, he does not seem to take this seriously. And he has no idea or no ability or no interest, it's kind of hard to say, in understanding and empathizing with the suffering of humanity. He doesn't really seem to register that at all. So unfortunately, we're going to have to listen to Elon Musk talk a bunch of rubbish. And as is his wont, he surrounds himself with men who agree with him, who are invested in protecting male supremacy, interested in reinforcing patriarchy, and the sort of entitlement to people's bodies and their unpaid labor as normal and natural. And if you don't sacrifice your body and your time and your life in the way they deem you ought to, well, then you're selfish. Not the billionaire who's blowing billions of dollars trying to steal Earth's resources in order to take them to Mars. No, he's not selfish. All right, let's get started with this. And the other thing I'll do is I'll try to bring up the chat as well. so that I can see, hey, I see Smashing the Patriarchy. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. And I wasn't able to sort out my lighting this morning because my light broke. Like, I've just been having a series of obstacles, but we're going to get through it. So apologies then if it's a little bit on the wonky side for that. Lighting wise, if I'm a bit blown out, I couldn't get a balance for my fill light. All right, let's listen to a bunch of people who don't have skin in the game when it comes to delivering babies talk about the importance of having babies. Oh, let me just double check that my audio here is unmuted and ready to go. It's not. So we'll do a little audio test. If it seems to be fine, I'll just keep rolling.
No, we have an underpopulation problem.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you
So
say that?
this is the most commonly misunderstood situation.
Yeah, they definitely push that we have a overpopulation.
Yeah, why is
problem.
that?
I don't know. It's just like
Why? I don't know. How about this? How about child starvation? Let's just start with the basics. All right, let's just start with the very basic when it comes to, and this is also, by the way, inspired by his really inane and idiotic statements about being on Team Humanity. Right? The reason why people talk about overpopulation now is because we don't have a resources problem, we have a distribution problem. Right? It's not that we couldn't feed every single person on this planet. That's not the problem. The problem isn't that, we don't have the technology or the capacity to redistribute our resources in a way to make sure that no one goes to bed hungry. We could do that, but no one does. And no one does because it's not profitable. And our society is currently structured in such a way that things that are not profitable are worthless, right? So the reason why we talk about overpopulation is because in areas where we can't readily sustain life, areas that are hard hit, areas that are environmentally vulnerable, right? But we still have human populations, or simply as a entirely consequence of human actions, right? The legacy of colonialism, the arbitrary lines that have been drawn all over Africa to be convenient for white Europeans to manage them at the time, the legacy of stripping Africa of its greatest resources, which are its people, and its natural resources, in order to make the rich West. This is the problem, right? This is why we are struggling to reduce human suffering. And Elon doesn't do anything in his proposals to address the problem now. So by his logic, this flickering is going to drive me up the freaking wall, I swear to God. By his logic, what we should really do is just increase human suffering. We just need more people. But he doesn't want to talk about the redistribution of those resources. He himself is not doing anything to redistribute resources. If anything, he's a big selfish jerk who's absorbing U.S. taxpayer dollars and other people's tax dollars, I'm sure, to profit himself and his shareholders. And so when he's talking about this whole thing, just notice the extent to which he completely ignores structural issues like unequal distribution of resources and rich people like him hoarding all of the wealth instead of redistributing it in the form of higher wages and higher benefits that would actually allow people financially to have kids.
I think it's like this is a holdover from the 70s or something, So there was a huge baby boom, like where people did have a ton of kids after World War II, but then the U.S. has actually had the birth rate in the U.S. has been below replacement rate since like 71 or 72.
In the U.S.,
50 years.
How about other
the U.S. has
countries,
been
though?
below replacement rate.
I know U.S., but how about other countries?
Well, like China's got a huge population collapse problem.
Really?
Yeah.
China, you actually get penalized if you have more than one kid.
All right, so let's talk about the problems in China. All right. The problems in China, I think, are easier to explain if you understand that they too institute patriarchy as part of their social norms, and they reproduce patriarchy. So the one-child policy, in theory, let's just say, is brutal and unfair and impinges on people's freedoms. You combine that with a preference for boys because of a sexist society, and what you end up with is, instead of incentivizing people to have kids of both sexes Okay, I'm just going to bring this down a little bit because I realized my new camera is a little high, so I'll bring that down a bit. You get families favoring boys for individual rational reasons, right? Because Chinese society, long a patriarchal society, just like in the West, puts more value on boys and gives privileges to boys and gives right to boys and promotes the economic security, development, autonomy of boys who become men. And therefore, it is in a family's interest to have a son, because having a daughter is a financial liability. So there's a built-in irrational preference based purely on sexism. And as a consequence of this, more boys were born than girls due to like selective abortions, I'm sure, and also having a boy and then stopping instead of having a second child, which could in theory be a girl. And that is what caused the imbalance, that caused the population problems. In and of itself, if you had an equal distribution, I don't think that would have been the outcome naturally. But human sexism, especially men's sexism, that because men in the societies have power, men are the one who reproduce toxic masculine norms and reproduce patriarchy because they primarily benefit from it. By having that preference and being able to wield their economic power to get to that result, yeah, you're going to end up with a population problem. But that's not because in and of itself, the one-child policy caused that problem. And this is where Elon is not smart. He's just not smart. He looks at population going down and goes, one-child policy, you have to have more than one child. No, you actually have to think more broadly about who is getting born and who, and then the long-term implications of that. I don't understand why people think this man is so smart, because he's just not in a lot of ways. All right. Oh, and then there's a little echo chamber too here of dude bros really anger me at some point, but we'll get to it.
No,
Are you being serious?
No,
They cut that off.
No, see, this is like, so part of it is just like we're operating on things that were true in the past but are no longer true. So China did have a one-child policy, but like about 10 years ago, they changed it to a two-child policy. And then a few years ago, they changed it to a three-child policy. And birth rate kept plummeting the whole time.
Because you never address the sexism. The one-child policy isn't the problem. The sexism is the problem. The attitudes that preserve male supremacy are the problem. So, think, Elon, supposed genius, not at all a genius, Mr. Pudgy Belly, which, fair enough, I have Pudgy Belly too, but I'm just picking on him now because he just really disgusts me. It's like how much harm he does to the world and how freaking selfish he is.
They had the lowest birth rate ever last year.
Really?
Yeah, China's birth rate right now is 40% below replacement.
Wow, traditional women. I don't want to,
Listen, one can speculate.
I don't even know what that means, traditional women. Again, like there's no reflection here about the sexism that benefits these guys, even at intersections of other forms of oppression. Let's say their ethnic background or disability, they still have male supremacy. And this bonding here around, bees be the problem, is part of that male supremacy. It's a part to be. It's a way to be part of an in-group where you get to look down on people who are not part of that group.
As to the reasons, but I can tell
there's
you
no hose. I mean, like,
brilliant. Again, I can't believe that we've constructed a society where someone has power just because of the genitals between their legs. It's the stupidest way to structure a society of any I can think of.
Andrew Tate was last week, bro.
I know, but it's true, bro.
So again, just shows you this sort of world that they live in, where women are dehumanized and women's work is devalued. People who aren't in their in-group with their sexual orientation, their cis or trans orientation, just are othered and dehumanized. And they then pretend like they want equal rights and equal treatment and, freedom of speech for all, while going about purposely undermining entire groups in society and instead elevating and preserving their own power.
But like what you said about birth,
They're out there.
see that.
Wow, that is a very common misconception. I would have
It's
never.
a very common
right.
misconception. What we face is population collapse.
Huh.
Collapse.
No, we don't. So Okay, if you go and look up where there are population reductions and population, where you have replacement level, where you have not, people in the West who have more access to education and more access to contraception, and families can decide to avoid pregnancies while economic downturns happen, yeah, you're going to get a lowering of the birth rate, except for women like who are getting very close to not being able to have kids anymore. Apparently, like financial concerns are less of a pressing concern than time. If a woman or a person who can get pregnant decides, okay, I'm going to go one last time. I want one more child while I know I can still have one. Then economics don't seem to affect that so much because time is more of an issue. But women who are in there, or people who can get people with uteruses, let me say, people with uteruses can delay pregnancies during periods of economic hardship. So we've had the 2008 crisis, then we had COVID. We saw birth rates go down during COVID because obviously like people didn't want to go into a hospital and deliver while there were a bunch of infected people there. Like that's just a rational thing. Like, hey, maybe I know we were thinking about having a kid this year, but given the fact that we're in a global pandemic and it's kind of dangerous, maybe we should hold off on that. Areas where you do have higher rates of higher fertility rates are linked with less access of education to girls, less access to contraception, and more social norms that deprive women of that kind of autonomy. And therefore, just want to make sure, yep, I've got the right thing up. So we have uneven birth rates. But globally, if you want to take care of that issue, it's pretty easy. You allow for immigration. You just allow people to move, and then you get less pressure in the areas where there are fewer resources, and you get people who are workers in areas where there are more resources but fewer people, and things balance out. But of course, racists don't like that because historically, Western Europe has absorbed a lot of the wealth out of these developing countries. And it's the developing countries that have more people than resources because of Western extraction, and therefore Western people want to hoard their wealth and not share it, and then they're complaining about the fact that there aren't people to do the jobs. It's like human beings they don't always think about both sides of the equation, right? Like, oh, I don't like immigrants, but also why is there no one taking care of me in the healthcare industry or doing these kinds of jobs that traditionally have been filled by people who come in from migration? So again, just globally, no. Globally, no.
Like people have no idea how fast the population is going to collapse.
Remember, this guy also predicted a really harsh recession in April of like last year. What never happened. So really, he's not good at predicting things in the future.
What are we trending
Japan
at?
is pretty far along in that. Like Japan actually lost like 600,000, went down by 600,000 people last year.
The Japanese are not in the bedroom at all then.
It would
Not at all.
It would seem not.
Yeah, and again, you have to look at the cultural pressures as well as like just talking about making babies. Like, why is it that that things are going down, right? Is it due to lack of family-friendly planning? Is it due to the pressure that society puts on people to attain a certain level? I mean, I think that when you just look at it very simplistically as people need to have more babies, you completely ignore all the structural things that go into people doing a bare race replacement rate, or the ways that these things can be solved through immigration without creating more people.
What about the U.S.? We got to increase, right?
Yeah, what I'm saying is the U.S. has been below replacement rate for 50 years. The only reason.
Okay, so let's just talk about below replacement rates. Oh, that's really hard to say. Below replacement rates. U.S. population growth. So who's not replacing? 50 since what is it? We'll call it. What's 2025? We'll call it 1950. All right, the last 6 decades. This is why it's really difficult to take him seriously. All right. Population change in the U.S. and around the world, 1950 to 2000. 2050. The demographic future in the US looks very different than recent key past. No, I don't want to hear this. Thank you, Spotify or Speechify. Growth from 2050 to 2010 was rapid. However, population growth from 2010 to 2050 is projected to be significantly slower and expected to tilt strongly to the oldest age groups. Yeah, because when you have baby booms, then people get older. I mean, that's just how it works. So the U.S. population is projected to increase from 312.2 million people in 2010 to 400.9 million in 2050. This 4-year decade period, that's an increase of 28%. At an average annual rate of 0.6%. The anticipated annual growth rate in the U.S. is significantly slower than in the past. Okay, so we're slowing down. Thus, the projected annual growth rate is only about half the growth rate. All right, so I don't know. This sort of mid group here looks fine. Get more older people, got a few less younger people. But isn't it the case that like younger people are now like outdoing the boomers? Not boomers, but Xers like me. So that's estimates of the U.S. range, and it's hard to say what this is in percentages, but that looks pretty good working age to me. I mean, yeah, you get a lot more older people, but we're also living longer and working longer. So the idea that you turn 65 and you just start to absorb resources isn't really the case anymore. So it's very difficult for me to take him seriously when we see the population going up, and he's saying there's a population collapse coming. It doesn't. No. If you're worried about it, naturalize a bunch of people who have been working as undocumented, or not naturalize, but give them a pathway to citizenship. If they're already in America and they're doing jobs and they're paying taxes, just freaking let them become citizens, and then boom. You don't have to worry about the distribution because they're already in the economy. They're just not being counted. All right, let's go back to the Brofest.
The population has increased
Like yearly, you're
Since
saying.
the 70s.
Yeah, since the early 70s, since like 71, 72.
So why are we spewed with all this BS that we're overpopulating, but the population's growing, right?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is, Elon. We just looked at it. Like both the global population and the U.S. population are expanding. Yes, we are living longer, but that also means that there's more people around. That's called population growth. If you don't die off faster than you make people, that's growth. Such a moron.
So I mean, I should say the like lifespan is increasing.
Mm-hmm.
People are living longer. That's the only reason why the population of Earth isn't plummeting, but it will plummet.
Yeah, except for that whole thing that people are around more, so population numbers go up. It's all doom and gloom. Honestly, why do people even listen to this guy? And notice that he is not thinking at all in terms of human suffering, child poverty, maternal death rates, none of those things. It's just pure, we need more babies. Nothing at all about the structures into which they're born.
Plummet. So,
Sorry, I've got a lot of windows going.
Like one metric to track is the ratio of adult diapers to baby diapers.
Mm-hmm.
Like at what point does a country have more adult diapers than baby diapers? And like Japan went past that point over 10 years ago, I believe.
Whoa.
What do you think happens in like the future?
Well, who cares? I mean, honestly, this idea that somehow like the only answer is always to have more children, as opposed to redistribute the populations in ways that match resources with needs. Changing immigration policies to allow people to get away from areas where there's a destiny of human suffering because of the political situation or usually political, sometimes economic. Nothing like that. It's just make more babies, which is all you're going to do is increase suffering. If your answer is to just create more of what you currently have instead of fixing the problems that are causing, like the real problems, the real root cause of the problems, which is not a lack of population. It's about the suffering of that population.
What's your kind of thought on that?
Well, I think we've got to turn this around. We've got to have at least replacement rate, if not more, on the baby front.
All right, so now we're going to move into a discussion where I think 4 people who will never face pregnancy, never face labor, never face ectopic pregnancies, never worry about preeclampsia, never have to deal with an episiotomy or postpartum depression, or losing out several months of work in their careers in order to be a good parent, or be caught up in the double bind of mothers or people who have, who deliver their children. Oh, you're supposed to have more babies. But if you actually stay home and collect state money because you're not working, your job is raising your children, then you're a leech. You're just a parasite on society. You're a welfare queen. All you do is sit around and pop out babies so you can get a bigger check from the government, right? And then if you don't do that, you're a terrible mother because you are picking your career over your child. You're picking your financial comfort over satisfying, the needs of your child by being a stay-home mom. Are they talking about that bind that mothers face, that pregnant people have to overcome in society, that no matter what they do, they're terrible? No. They're just like, oh, we need more hoes. Which shows, again, the actual problem with giving people power who have no idea the implications of how they wield that power.
And by the way, these are not matters that are subjective. You can just literally look at the birth rate.
Yeah.
It's like it's an objective number. Like,
It's not objective, Elon. You know what? Numbers are objective, but you know what? You can also measure child poverty. In fact, I don't know if I'll be able to get into my Blue Sky account here, but I just last night retweeted in advance and sort of like in preparation of this particular broadcast. I'll see if I can get my account up. Yay! I'm logged in. I hope. Fingers crossed. Oh, looking good so far. Yay! All right, looking good. All right, post replies. Here it is. First one. Some basic statistics on maternal mortality here in the U.S. Like here, I'm in Germany, but in the U.S., right? Richest country in the world. But maternal mortality rate in 2021 was 32.9, doubling from 2018. So in 2023, at least almost 3,500 women have died compared to 1,205 in 2011. This rate is higher than Syria, Chile, or Russia. And the United States is the last in the developed nations when it comes to making sure that mothers don't die. In 2023, we'll rank behind most underdeveloped nations, right? So what is the point of pushing people to have babies when their mothers die? You can't have more babies, Elon, if the people who are giving birth are dying because of complications that are not being treated. Oftentimes when it comes to Black women, it's because of racism, because doctors don't take their complaints seriously. They don't do things preventatively to identify risk factors for Black mothers. So, yes, how does your just have more babies solve this problem of dead moms? And then kids without parents growing up. It doesn't enter your worldview. It's way more sophisticated. It's too much team humanity, taking on the idea of human suffering as the problem to be solved, not mere numbers. Just because something is objective doesn't mean that you can look at it and say, I am therefore right. Yes, maybe objectively numbers are going down, but suffering is going up because overall the numbers are trending upwards. You can have increases while a rate goes down. And there are other ways to solve this resource distribution problem, which is what it really is, than have more babies and just add to the weight of the structural oppressions and sufferings that are currently going on. I don't understand why people think this guy is smart or should be listened to on any topic at all.
Like how many babies were born? It's like they recorded this information, So,
So you're saying people need to be having more kids?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I'm sure you know a lot of.
No, this isn't the answer. The answer isn't creating more problems because of the structural outcomes we have now is going to fix it. All you're going to do is create more human suffering, more child poverty, more child nourishment, more child exploitation, more of the suffering that we actually, if you want to say you're on team humanity, Elon, if you want to say you're pro-civilization, you know what civilization is? A civilization is a place where a kid doesn't go to bed hungry. A civilized society is a place where children and their parents don't have to sleep in a car or on the streets because they don't have a home. Right? A civilization is one that addresses and works to change attitudes to end domestic violence in the home. Right? There are ways to be on team humanity that isn't as easily solved as you dumping your sperm in another person and then basically throwing money at the problem and occasionally visiting. That's not a solution. Actually being on team humanity, really being pro-human, means working toward eudaimonium, or happiness for everyone. And that means reductions in suffering. And nothing he talks about would reduce human suffering. It would only increase it. I know I'm repeating myself now, but I get really, how can you be this blind? How can you not see the real problems? And how can't you see that your solution is just going to exacerbate the current pressures we're facing with immigration and trying to deal with child poverty in developed and underdeveloped and developing nations? This is a global issue.
People who have like no kids. Like, how many kids do you guys have?
I got no kids.
I mean, that we know
None
of.
of you guys have. What the fuck?
Notice he didn't ask how many of you are good fathers. How many of you are fathers to your children? How many are you spending time nurturing the next generation? That's not how he counts it. He counts it as dumping sperm into people. And if you rack up those numbers, somehow that's a win, like it's a video game. Again, ignoring the human suffering he's causing, the abandonment issues, the daddy issues, that he himself is causing his own children by being an absent father, by sleeping on the floor of his office when he clearly doesn't have to, by saying he wants to spend his Friday nights streaming his video game playing instead of spending actual time with his family. He is the problem. Elon Musk is creating more human suffering every time he dumps his sperm into somebody and it unites with an egg.
I'm 28, but I mean,
I'm
But
20.
I guess I
20
could.
is reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fair.
I've been thinking of
I'm
it.
trying to get a baby mama soon, but yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to be a father. I'm sorry, this new setup in Windows where it like drops this little blue box at the bottom and it always wants to pop up the window. Every time I hover over it, it pops up. I'm going to have to move that. It's a new thing since the update. It's really annoying. But look at this. I want a baby mama soon. Not I want a child to nurture and raise and bring up well. And then we wonder, like, why we have a society that's so terrible. Because we have attitudes that create men who are part of the problem and don't value the emotions and work and nurturing that goes into being part of the solution. Not enough. I mean, we're getting more, right? A lot of men are breaking free from the indoctrination of patriarchy. They're realizing there are multiple ways to be men and be masculine without being toxic, that being a man doesn't mean impregnating a lot of people and being irresponsible. It doesn't mean using violence to solve your problems, and it doesn't mean denying your emotions. And these are all good steps forward to actually solving that problem of human suffering. But these guys are in a bubble that is just going to recreate it.
Yeah.
And I just got married last month. She's over there.
Okay, congrats.
I hate that thing.
I feel like that's
Good
kind of
work.
changing though. I think like with generations, our generation is having like less marriages, less kids.
Well, child support, man. A lot of guys are scared right now.
Yeah. This is like, if your only problem is you have to financially care for your children, oh my God, how do I turn this off? Can I please just stop this pop-off forever and ever? I hate it. Absolutely hate it. But if your biggest problem is that you are actually going to be financially responsible for your own child, and that's it, for 18 years, this is the problem. This is why we have a crazy, like, we have bad society. We have bad social outcomes. Because you're not at all thinking about the risks to the person who's pregnant. You're only thinking about, oh, if I get someone pregnant, I might have to pay some money. I might have to pay 30% or 20% of my total income for 18 years. Is disgusting. And the way that this is a safe space for these men to reinforce their bad attitudes, their dismissive attitudes toward toward mothers and mothering and being a parent, to just treat it like a joke. It's just a numbers game. It's just notches on your belt.
It's true.
Well, that's
It's
not the
true.
only thing, but
I mean,
yeah.
it's true, man.
And Elon's like, oh yeah. Shut the up. You rich bastard. Stealing taxpayer money, using it to blow on your little pet projects that advance white supremacy, Christian nationalism. It's just disgusting.
I would be scared too. I mean, geez.
That probably is a big
No,
thing.
it's a
That's
big
probably part
factor.
of it,
Yeah,
too.
I
but,
feel
well,
like.
like
Part of it-
cost
part of it, too.
is probably
Cost
a big
of a
thing.
child.
Yeah.
And now we know why abortion is an issue, because women, again, mothers, people who can become mothers, it's usually about, like, we look at Kate Cox in Texas, right? She was trying for a third child, and it didn't work out, right? If she dies, how is that going to help her family? It's not, right? So, like, not only do people who have the pregnancy have the financial burden, like these guys are worried about, child support. They're not worried about time off work or loss to their career or having to use up all their sick days, so that they're, like needed to unpaid leave if they have a really bad year when it comes to their resources, when it comes to, their kids getting sick. You are so protected. Like, you are so taken away from the daily realities of parenting. And yet you're still so incredibly self-absorbed and just selfish when it comes to thinking about what it means to be a father. It's so messed up.
Give me a break. I'm not.
Social media too.
Yeah.
People get caught up on social media instead of going out and having fun. And
How detrimental is that? Like, what's that? If it keeps trending this way,
well, we become
how long do we
extinct
have
eventually.
before it's like, yeah, I guess, extinct?
Well, it's a like a low birth rate is a slow death for a civilization. It's not a fast death.
Yeah, we're chilling for a bit.
Again, we're still seeing population increases and we still see birth rates high in certain parts of the world. So it's not a numbers problem, it's a distribution problem. And a steady population seems to be a much more responsible way of organizing a global economic distribution of resources, rather than having big increases that will provide people at the top with more cheap labor to exploit and people at the bottom to experience more suffering. Again, how is this guy considered smart?
Yeah, I mean,
So
you're cruising. It's just like the average age just starts drifting up, and then, basically civilization will die with a whimper in adult diapers.
It's just the dumbest thing ever. He's just so dumb. He's acting like once you get on a low population rate, that it's never going to go up again. You're never going to have another baby boom. Again, that's not how things work. You could have a series of time where societies do get organized and families feel empowered and financially secure to have more kids if they want them. And hey, I want every child to be a wanted child and a child that you can take care of. And that not just the family's responsibility, but society's responsibility to make sure that kid doesn't go to bed hungry, that has a good education, that gives opportunities to rise through a meritocracy rather than it being how much money you inherit, right?
Kind of sucks it's like anticlimactic. It's not exactly. I mean, frankly, if you say given the choice, I'd rather civilization went out with a bang than a whimper in adult diapers.
Yeah.
What's a bang?
Bang would be World War III.
He'd rather the planet be completely destroyed, all humanity wiped out, or living in such toxic conditions that their extinction is inevitable, than the opportunity for the population to come down and go back up again. Is he a sociopath? Is he a psychopath? Is he just score zero on emotional intelligence? I mean, who would rather have a planet be destroyed? Not just for humanity. He's so anthropocentric. He's only thinking about humanity. Because, the globe and species existed before human beings emerged as we have. And chances are, unless we do something like stupid Elon thinks is a preferable outcome, and destroying not only human civilization and human species, but all species on the planet, he thinks that that's preferable than just humans naturally dying out like other species have over time. Again, sociopath, psychopath, malignant narcissist, zero emotional intelligence. Just like, like I don't understand why people respect this man.
If the choices are, like it's just like sad, or it's just sad if you just die, and if civilization dies of old age. I think. So
He's
that's like
such a moron.
that's probably the biggest myth that exists right now, is this overpopulation myth, when in fact we have a population collapse problem. And I think people can see this anecdotally when they talk to friends, and just like we just said, like, none of you guys have kids yet. It's totally understandable. 20.
No, anecdotal isn't evidence. You were talking about, objective numbers, right? But you're ignoring a lot of the contributing causes and also the outcome effects. And now just like, oh yeah, people aren't having 7 kids anymore. How about this? Like, one, there's contraception. So people have a much greater ability to control the timing and number of their pregnancies, because human children are incredibly resource intensive. That is our evolutionary inheritance, right? The babies' heads, are bigger. The kids are born. Human kids require more attention for longer than any other species. Baby horses, ponies, like walking a couple hours after they get dropped out of their mom, right? But humans require breastfeeding until like 2 years old. They have to be potty trained. They have to be socialized. They need to learn an entire language, an entire social culture. Then they need a trade, some sort of skill set that they can use to sell their labor in a marketplace that, the game of capitalism that started before they were born. And so it's just the idea, yes, we did have a time where women didn't have any control over their reproduction, people who can get pregnant. Of course, trans people were way less accepted back then, so it was just like the lie of the two genders. But but infant mortality was 25-50%. So you had to have kids because the chances of your kids dying was 50-50 because civilization was so poor. And you think that was mentally healthy? Like, you think that's good? You think someone having 16 kids, any of those kids are going to like grow up having the attention they need, all of the resource that they could possibly want, the time and attention from their parents when they're competing against 15 other kids? Their mom is constantly pregnant or breastfeeding or, just getting over a delivery before she's pregnant again, and then going through morning sickness and all the, again, there's just no humanity here. Not a shred of humanity. Actually looking at people's lives, as opposed to this imaginary numbers game where he gets to pick and choose which variables to focus on.
But
28.
Yeah, 28 maybe. How old are you?
42.
42. You should
He's
have
not contributing.
See, like by 42, you should have.
No.
Yeah, and you know what? You are contributing when you have no children at 42, because you are only paying into the system. Your taxes are going to absorb the cost of other people's kids so that you have doctors in 20 years when you retire, that you have dentists, that you have nurses, you have car mechanics. This idea that the way you contribute to a society is by dumping out more children is messed up. It's just messed up. And also, it's this notion that everyone is going to be a fit parent. They're not. Not everyone is a fit parent. Even people who have kids. There are some people who shouldn't have kids, who have kids, right? There are some people who would be good parents but don't want to be, so don't make them, right? This idea that you are, because you are born, you didn't have a choice of being born, but yet because you're born, you are condemned, you are demanded to do a bunch of unpaid labor for 20 or 30 years, spend a bunch of money, and only then are you unselfish. By bringing somebody into the world who could suffer and who will die, you're not doing your duty, as opposed to looking at it from any other sense of resource distribution and the quality of life, not the quantity.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, I'm the problem. I know. That's what I got out of this.
So, that's I don't know. I have a lot of friends of mine, especially, know a lot of women that have not had kids and like not planning to, type of thing. And I'm like, man. So I'm worried about
Wow, deep. I know women who aren't having kids. Ugh, how do I stop this pop-up? I'm going to have to look at that later on. Normally it doesn't show up, but today, because I'm doing this video in a large screen, I think that's because it will. Yeah, judging you for not giving me the delivery, like not giving society the unpaid labor, not enduring merely out of a sense of obligation, not because you want to be a parent, the physical, emotional, and financial strains of parenthood. I feel like he really comes across as like a lizard brain. Like he just doesn't seem to have any ability to understand other people except through the lens of like his own, what matters to him. He's just really, really weird.
I think that's the biggest risk to civilization right now. It's just we got to get rid of this nonsense that we're having an overpopulation issue. We have an underpopulation issue.
Why do you think?
So anyone who can get pregnant is just supposed to. Whether or not they're able to, whether or not they're emotionally, financially set, you just owe unpaid labor to Elon because he thinks it's the problem. I think I'm getting repetitive here. We're just going to listen to the end and then I'll look at your comments.
That's not being said more then, if that's a huge problem.
Oh, it is being said. Women are being judged all the time.
I think, yeah, some kind of, I think like maybe the sort of, like I'm pro-environment, but I think the environmentalist agenda has kind of gone too far on
It's
this.
all agenda.
Yeah.
That's an environmentalist.
Yeah. More
Well, it's kind of like the,
I just sped it up.
I mean, like a lot of these things, it's like I'm not necessarily, I don't think it's like some sort of like sort of nefarious mastermind situation. It's just a dumb idea that hasn't been fixed, as opposed to like somebody's masterminding or something,
No, I have no idea what you're talking about, Elon.
Yeah, but I'm just saying objectively, one way or another, if we don't have kids, is like population is going to decline. Average age is going to increase.
When did you have your first child?
When I was 29.
29.
Wow. How many kids?
9, right?
Yeah.
9 children. Wow. How many baby
That's
mothers?
awesome.
3.
Wow.
Yeah, so really involved with those Christian values. Okay, so let me have a look at your comments, and then we will wrap it up. I do appreciate everyone who's had a chance to stop by. That was great. Oh, man. All right, Elon came out of the womb divorced. Yeah, not an untrue statement. Not an untrue statement at all. Smash the patriarchy, lol. Yes. Kieran, hey, but China still has massive shift of poor moving out of the moving to working class during the one-child policy period. Oh yeah, like Elon's just wrong. It's just Elon selectively focuses on variables while deliberately ignoring some other ones, right? They have just got a retail box of alcohol on the side, yes. Likelihood of induced abortions is significantly higher for women with only daughters, more than 25% of female fetuses. Scribby, is that in China? Yeah, so again, the problem for China with the current birth rate thing is that there are more young men than young women to have families. And that's a consequence of patriarchy and sexism, not the one-child policy. I know dozens of people who had a child now and all were conceived in the winter of 2022 or later, like there was some sort of pandemic the year before. Yes. China's birth rates. Thanks, Scribby. Yeah. Let's see. They want less responsibility than even owning a pet. Yeah. Self-driving cars have killed multiple people. Yes, true. Respect him because it's good at business and has money. Too many people think, if you have money, people think you're smart. When a lot of times it just means, you can be unscrupulous more than other people. Ironically, Kieran says, my friends have kids like two humans have to be decent to one another for them to want to have kids together. Yes. Also, the use of wet nurses was to make sure women could have the next child sooner as well. Yeah. So thank you everyone for your comments. Not the data feminism, but I think worth looking at the bubble, this male supremacy bubble that men are brought up into and conditioned as boys to think that people who can have babies just owe them. Like, they're just supposed to do that. You're just supposed to sacrifice your body and your health and your money and your life. And, for the guy, oh no, I might have a child support payment. Patriarchy sucks. Patriarchy ruins everything. And on that note, wow, I went way longer than I planned to. I think I've gone for almost an hour, which was definitely not the plan. I am behind on my phone calls for the day, but that's okay. I really don't have much going on. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your time and attention. I will see if I can't get that flicker. Let me transition here. I will see if I can't get that flicker to stop flickering. I'll look up what causes flickering during live streams. I did have an anti-flicker thing on my laptop. I tried an anti-flicker thing on else, but by putting it into a different port so that it didn't have to compete with other streams of information through my like power strip or my connector for all my USBs that I have to run in because I only have 2 USB ports on my laptop. But we'll see what I can do between now and next week. Until then, it's goodbye for me. And I oh wait, that's a Kevin one. I hope you have a wonderful day, morning, noon, or afternoon or evening, wherever it is and whenever it is you are. And until next time, I've been Kristi, and you've been awesome. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'll see you next weekend.